Let's break it down with foreign policy expert Michael Szanto from Miami. Michael, the Lebanese government is saying that Israel is lying and organized this tour to refute Netanyahu's claims at the UN. Now, Netanyahu says that Lebanon is lying. Should we assume that Israel knows better about Hezbollah's actions than the Lebanese government?
We don't have to. Hezbollah is one of the most vile terrorist groups in the world, murdered hundreds of Americans, hundreds of Israelis, has no business being part of that Lebanese government, and has a proven track record of mass murder. So Hezbollah needs to go. It needs to be disarmed. I mean, I haven't seen specific photos, but yes, we know what Hezbollah is up to. They want to kill as many Jews and Israelis and Americans as possible.
Lebanon's foreign minister, he did admit that Hezbollah has missiles, but not at the places Israel mentioned, as he said. Well, such a statement shows us that Hezbollah is a true legitimate force in Lebanon, despite its strong connection to Iran, right?
Well, absolutely. And, about half of the country is Shiite, so it is a big following. And in fact, unfortunately, the Christian population in Lebanon sometimes is split between supporting and opposing Hezbollah. People mistakenly assume all the Christians are against Hezbollah, but because of the success of the propaganda, they have a wide support, oftentimes among the population.
Hezbollah fighters, they have been fighting on President Assad's side in the Syrian civil war for years. Many of them, I should say, came back to Lebanon in coffins. On the other side of the border, you have Israel. Israel didn't fight a large-scale war in a couple of years. How likely is another escalation between Israel and Hezbollah in the near future? And what do you think is the power balance?
Well, that also brings to mind an interesting anecdote that I experienced myself. A friend of mine is Sunni Lebanese, and a few years ago, he admitted to me that it always made him very angry that I told him the fact that Hezbollah was terrorist. And then he came back to me and said it made him angry. He realized that I was right. And then every day now he hopes Israel will destroy Hezbollah. Because what Hezbollah has been doing in Syria is slaughtering Sunni civilians. So there is a backlash. And then among the Shiite population in Lebanon, of course, as you said yourself, many of the family members have received their relatives back in body bags. So there is some pressure on Hezbollah, which is one of the reasons I feel hopeful.
Over the weekend, Michael, Iran retaliated the military parade attack in which at least 25 people were killed and bombed militants in Syria's territory. What kind of message does it send to enemies of Iran on one hand, but also to an ally like President Assad?
Well, it shows Iran using ballistic missiles in a dangerous, threatening, and destabilizing way, just like Iran's allies in Yemen have actually attacked targets in Saudi Arabia. It's a threat against the Israelis. They have fired missiles against targets in Iraq. They have apparently placed missiles in Iraq that directly threaten Israel. So I think that it's a threat to Israel. It shows why Israel has often had to bomb Iranian targets in Syria. It doesn't give Assad a lot of backing. The main guarantor of his power since 2015 has actually been the Russians. But it shows that Iran has its own agenda, separate from Assad, separate from the Russians, which is basically to threaten Israel.
Michael, just briefly, over the weekend, there has been once again an uptick in violence on the Gaza border. How do you explain that? What's the reason?
A terrorist organization runs Gaza, and it's sad. They don't have an economic agenda. They don't have a plan to make their people prosperous or help the well-being of their population. Instead, Hamas, like Hezbollah, their only agenda is warfare and terrorism.
Well, ceasefire negotiations brokered by Egypt don't seem to be going anywhere. Michael Szanto, thank you for joining us, as always.